So my first question is all about how the legal process has changed over the past year, especially in the specialist finance market. What kind of things have you seen?
I think in terms of legal process, it sounds a bit ridiculous, but legal process is legal process. Unless it's going to be changed to statute and changed to the law, the process is pretty much going to be the same. Due diligence on your title, perfecting security, etc., etc. I think the changes that I've seen there is how we deal with that process as lawyers. So, when lockdown hit, pandemic related, everybody had to deal with remote working. And I think as lawyers and legal institutions, we're probably known for being a little bit more traditional than most businesses. So that was really the challenge for us. So it's how we've dealt with that legal process and managed to get the business into a position where it can operate fully remotely, fully digitised. And that's where we've really seen the changes. So in terms of digitising our account system, that was always on the agenda for us, but pandemic and lockdown was really a catalyst for that. Biometric ID, just using technology really to enhance the process and try and make it slicker whilst we're all working remotely, and we've gone from being fully office based to working from home. So yeah, in terms of legals, like I said, it's the process. You've got to get to the point where you've got your security perfected for your lender and for your borrower, but it's how we as lawyers have dealt with that process and the change in the operations side, I suppose, that we've seen over the past 12 months.
What positive and negative trends are you seeing in the bridging market from a legal perspective in terms of cases you are currently seeing?
I think in terms of positives, flexibility. Our lender clients have shown just a huge degree of flexibility with borrowers, with their particular cases. You've got lenders that have gone into the regulated sphere where they weren't there previously. And I think it's just, the array of products that are on offer across the remit of lenders is pretty unbelievable at the moment. And it's really developed, and we've seen the development especially in the last 12 months. In terms of negatives, I wouldn't say there's a negative as such in terms of negative trends in the industry. I would say there's definitely been an influx of shall we say, attempted instructions, where people are trying to be quite creative with things, and sometimes that pays off and sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, I suppose the fluctuation of instructions has been a bit of a negative, especially at the beginning of lockdown. But now, instruction levels are back to way increased on where they were before. So yeah, I suppose if there is a negative, it's probably the fluctuation of instructions that was a bit difficult to deal with at one point in the pandemic.
But by fluctuation, do you mean bottlenecks in terms of there were a big amount in one go and then kind of a smaller amount later on?
Kind of, yeah. I suppose at the beginning there was it was a little bit of a cliff edge in terms of, everybody went to work remotely, but then everybody was getting used to that. So the work levels dropped and there was a dip. And then when it started to come back, it was nice and steady for a while. And then it's just like, right, everybody's at it now. Everybody is fully remote. Everybody has developed the businesses, whether it's lenders, solicitors, or, even borrowers, valuers. We've got to the point where we can all do this now. And now there's just loads of activity in the market, which is great. So it's just managing that fluctuation of instructions, I suppose, that I wouldn't call it a negative, especially now because we're very, very busy, but it was just maybe a bit of a challenge.
Sure. You mentioned earlier, obviously, the different processes that you put in place, especially to digitize things and make sure that everyone can work from home. Would you agree that the legal process is taking longer for bridging finance at the moment? And how can this be sped up?
I think it did initially. I think 12 months ago, I mentioned it again when lockdown hit, I think everybody had to get used to that. So there was a bit of a slowdown whilst processes were put in place. But I wouldn't say so much now, other than the fact that everybody is super, super busy, which is also influenced by obviously the SDLT holiday. So I wouldn't say it's taking longer as such. I think it's just we need to keep an eye on resource and make sure that we can, hit our SLAs, make sure our clients are being serviced, both lenders and borrowers. Valuers and lenders have taken on AVMs, for example, which is great. That speeds the process up. As solicitors, we've started using biometric ID and other technologies to try and speed the process up. So I wouldn't say the legal process is necessarily slower. It's just we need to try and make sure that we keep up with demand.
Sure. And what advice would you give to lenders, brokers, and borrowers to help streamline the legal process and just to make sure that any part of the bridging loan timescale can be sped up?
I think in terms of, if we break it down, in terms of lenders, clear instructions and being clear in the requirements is key. We have some lenders that they just know exactly what they want to lend on. They only lend on that type of security, and they know exactly what they want to get there. And we build a relationship with them, and it just speeds up the process immeasurably when you've got that, when you're acting for the same lender on a repeat basis, and they know their market and they know their borrowers. So like I said, clarity of instructions, I think, is key with lenders. With brokers, just as much support as possible for borrowers is key, really. Loads of communication with the borrower so that they understand that when they receive either directly from us if it's a joint rep matter, or via their solicitor if it's a separate representation matter, the lender's requirements, they've got a bit of a heads up, and they know they've got the broker there to help them if they've got any difficulties. I think that really helps. And in terms of borrowers, just in a way taking the broker's advice to choose a lender that they know will fit their requirements and that they will be suited to. Brokers are key in this industry, and we've got some very, very good ones out there that can fit that lender borrower relationship very well. Just turning things around. It's very easy for borrowers to say, well, the solicitors have got lots of requirements. Yes, we have, but we don't tend to ask for unnecessary things because that doesn't help us either. So just sort of, being on board, loads of communication and turning things around as quickly as possible.
You mentioned a bit earlier about, you're seeing positively, we're seeing a lot of lenders diversify into new markets, especially with regulated as well. And then you mentioned there, lenders who know what they're doing, they know it inside out and they've been doing it for a long time. The process is going to be a lot more streamlined because they know what to ask in terms of the legal side. And for those which are entering new markets, are you seeing there's a bit of a learning curve at the moment, or are there any kind of hurdles that they're having to overcome?
I think for some, it can be a different mindset. Especially if they're taking a leap from a traditional separate pure bridging and development product into maybe the joint rep arena of that some regulated products are within. So yeah, I think it can be, but I think a lot of the people that are developing these products and running these products within the lenders that have brought them out in the last 12 months are just experts in their field. They know what they're doing, and that filters down to their underwriting team, to the credit team, and that's where we come in at legals and liaise with them to push the matters through to completion. So yeah, I think for some it's a bit of a learning curve, because I think a lot of the time the borrowers that you get on regulated products are very different to your commercial borrower, and sometimes they can need a little bit more help along the way. But again, that's where brokers can come in massively, as well as solicitors, to try and smooth that process.
Definitely. You obviously mentioned at the beginning, the processes that you've put in place during the pandemic. Will there be any which you're going to keep once we're out of this, out the other side?
Yeah, definitely. I think the pandemic really just sort of catalysed a lot of what we were doing already and brought it forward. So definitely, the fully digitised system where any of us can work remotely, there's no reason to change any of that. We are pretty much paperless, although I'll say paperless, just in case our post-comp team are listening. So yeah, we've got to the point where we are as paper light as possible, which is great for us as a business, especially in property, because that can be a challenge. Things like biometric ID, we'll definitely keep that in, and we're looking at another process at the moment to sort of have a hybrid system for ID, just so that borrowers have a choice. And electronic signatures, we're looking into that as well to align ourselves with Land Registry now that they've brought out their guidelines. So yeah, anything that we can do to just keep everything digitised. You wouldn't want to go backwards, because it doesn't make any sense. We just need to make sure that what we bring in is within the risk arena of what we're doing, and make sure it's beneficial for us and for the borrowers and the lenders.
How else will you be enhancing your offering using tech this year?
It's a very good question. As I said, I've just touched upon the Land Registry and their requirements. I think we need to keep on board with those, fully digitise electronic signatures and electronic sign-up of documents where we can, keep in line with with submissions with land registry in terms of, you know, wet ink signatures versus what we can do electronically. Again, the biometric ID is a big factor. And then just developing our systems really to keep them streamlined and make sure that we're hitting all of our metrics in terms of service levels.
And my last question's about, you know, the kind of hurdles you potentially expect this year. What do you think will be the biggest challenge and also the biggest opportunity for solicitors in bridging in 2021?
I think keeping a pace with our lenders actually is probably the challenge, because they're all so, you know, bridging is an innovative arena, and they're all bringing out new products and new systems and new processes all the time to keep up with the market really. And as a legal services provider, we need to keep up with them. So, but it's a challenge that brings opportunity to bring the two together really. So we're more than happy to be on board with our clients. We've got a couple of fintech clients, for example. You know, when they bring technology to us, we're more than happy to embrace that. We've got in-house development teams that have done that for some of our clients, and just make sure that we're on top of the tech to make sure, like I said, we're streamlined and hitting our metrics with customer service.
Have you widened the number of lenders that you work with as a result of the kind of tech changes that you've implemented?
Yeah, we have actually. Yeah, we've attracted a couple of new lenders that have heard what we've been doing, and we've brought them on board. And they're a good fit. We're a good fit for them. They're a good fit for us. We've got a very good central services team that sort of integrate with their systems, and we can produce common MI between us and the lender, so that we can keep an eye on trends and keep an eye on instruction levels and capacity between us. And that's worked really well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time, Jodi.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Beth.